Well, welcome to Equip for Life. My name is Will Gearing, and this is just a brief overview of the personal budget program that we offer on our site. If you are possibly interested and you've picked the link up off our site, then this is just giving you an idea of what this budget is about before you make a commitment to download it. And if you haven't picked it up off our site, you're welcome to go to our site and you will see that this budget is available to purchase on our site for a nominal amount of 199 Rand, or roughly about $10, which is, I believe you will save that and more in the first month that you actually use this budget. It's a really simple way of tracking your expenses and your income. Once you've set it all up, it's easy to do. It can be done with a minimum of fuss, and I can assure you it'll make a big difference in your financial life. This is something I'm really passionate about, and I've been working on this for quite a while to hopefully perfect it. I don't think it's at the stage where it's absolutely 100% perfect, and as we do any modifications to it, they will automatically be sent to you if you have downloaded the program. So just the requirements that you would need to have a Excel program to run the program on, because it does work off Excel. You would also need to have a bank account with a debit card, and we would also suggest that you get a second savings account, because it all works on that basis. So you'd need a bank account with a debit card, a second savings account, and access to be able to work with Excel on your computer. We suggest that you don't run a credit card. In my view, credit cards are just not necessary. You've got a debit card, rather you only spend what you have in your account, and this is even more the case with running a budget, that you don't spend money that you don't have, plus the fact that credit cards probably charge the highest interest rate of any lending facility that's known in the financial world. So we don't want you paying those high interest rates. If you do have a credit card at the moment and you owe money in it, then make this a thing in your budget to pay off that credit card as soon as you can. Even if it can't be done in the first month, it might take you a month or two, make it a loan and pay it off as soon as you can. Okay, so what we want to do now is just give you a very brief overview of how this works, and you can see if it's for you or not. We do have a much longer tutorial on exactly how to set everything up, which we go through step by step and very slowly, so that you can set everything up. And let me just say from the outset that setting up always takes a bit of time, and it does take a bit of effort. But once this is set up, it's really simple to run, and minimal changes are required when you start the next month, unless you've got some really big changes in your income or your expenses. So I'll just give you a brief overview on it. The first page that you see here is your monthly tracking. This is where you would do most of your work during the month, besides obviously your bank accounts. But this is the main place where you would track all your expenses. So when we start the budget off, we actually start working. There are some tabs down at the bottom here. You'll see month one, which is your working sheet, bank account, and that's the bank account I mentioned earlier. You need a bank account. Your budget categories, this is where everything gets set up. Then we have a savings. This is the savings page, which shows you where all your different savings are going, because you obviously put a lump sum a month into savings, but you need to allocate it into different subsections. And then you have your savings account, which is your second account. Most banks will allow you to link a savings account to your main account. If you can't do this, then I suggest you just open up a completely separate account for savings. And then we got some blank sheets here, which are just for your use if you want to track something like maybe car repayments or something like that. So having a quick look at this, we would start the budget in budget categories. So what we would do up here, and we start on the right hand side here, is we would put in all our annual saving amounts. Now we call them annual saving amounts, but they don't necessarily need to be annual amounts. An example of an annual amount would be something like a motor car license, where you've got to pay 700 a year, and you would therefore divide 700 by 12, and you would put in that amount to cover that license when it comes up for payment once a year. So that becomes an annual thing. Something like vet, if you have animals, you would again allocate something each month to vet, but you have no idea when you're going to spend that. You don't know if something's going to suddenly happen to one of your animals and you need to spend money. So it's an allocation that goes into a category, and it's just so that when that need does arrive, you actually have money for that. Things like clothing. You don't go out every month and decide I'm going to spend the exact same amount on clothing every month. So again, you would have a category here for clothing, and you would put an amount. And I'll just give you an example here. So if we put clothing in at the top here, and you can put clothing for yourself or clothing for your partner or your wife, if you are doing it together, you can name it. So clothing, and if you want to allocate 200 for that, then you can see the total here is 200, and then we might say, because we have some animals, we also want to allocate 200 for the animals. So there it totals up our monthly, what we need to put into our monthly savings account. And the first item that comes up on our monthly budget here is that amount down here, which is our 400, which needs to go into our savings account. Then what happens with this savings account is we have a separate account here. This account would be your bank account. You would show that money going in here. So it would be, you can say whatever, if the month was, for example, June, and you've got that total that we mentioned, that goes into your savings account. And then what would happen is that this now gives you a running total of, at all times, of what's in your account. Obviously, if you took something out of this account, it would then be a negative amount that you would put in here. And then under the savings tab, all those categories would then appear. So if you recall, we put in clothing, there's the 200 showing each month, and we put in the vet, there's the 200 showing. We need to put that in here, so we can say it was June that we said we put in. So there's the 200 we put in, and on here we can say June. You can put a date in here, the day you put it in, and again here we put in 200 for the vet. So I'm going to take this out because that was an expense that I'll show you now, but there we have it. So there's our start of our month. This is obviously very simplified. We've put in two amounts into our saving of a total of 400. It tells us there what our balance is. That's on this sheet, everything on this sheet. And then it tells us here what our actual account balance is. That's in our savings account. And it tells us we are all fine because nothing is owing and nothing is under. Then if we actually spend something, it would come off here. So for example, as we had there before, we go and buy a pair of socks, and it cost us 50 for the socks. So 50 comes off. Okay. Now we can see that our balance on this sheet is 350, but it's showing that we have 400 in our account when we don't actually have 400, because we've now gone and purchased those socks. So what we do here is we just say whatever you want to call it, and that now comes off our bank account. Okay, so now our bank account needs to be the same as our whatever's in our savings account. So you can use this account with a card, and you just use a card on this account as well. Or if you don't want to use a card, or you don't have facility for a card in this account, you transfer that money into your main account, and obviously goes in and out. But the main thing is that this account here shows, and if we go back to our savings, we now see that it's all square. We have 350 on this page, and we have 350 in our account. The total monthly here is that same figure that is all these categories added up together. So that's how the savings works. Then if we go back to our actual expenses, we would put all our expenses in this list here, and how much we are allocating each month to live by. There's a list here of a whole lot of suggestions, just so that it might jog your memory, but obviously you can name them as you want, and you can also come up with your own ones that you can put in here. The bottom line is, when we get down here, we have an income amount that comes through from our first page, and I'll show you that now. This needs to equal that, so that once we finish doing all these expenses, we have a green 0 in this square down here in this cell. So you need to achieve that. If you can't and it's over, you need to go back to these categories and say, well, we need to save somewhere to get this to green. It is absolutely no good spending more than what you're earning, and that's why we do a budget, so that you can actually see what's happening. Then the monthly tracking takes place here of everything. This is where you're going to work the most. As you can see, these categories here where we did budget, we did phone and that, and your monthly, you can see how it pulls through into this side. You don't have to redo it, and the amounts pull through as well, so that's pretty simple. And then there's your salary. There are 10 places here to put in different amounts of income. You could put your partner or your wife's income there. You could put a commission or a side hustle or some other way that you earn income, but it gives you a total, and that total is what you need to live off each month and no more. Then what happens is, as we go along the months, you have a spend tracker section here, and this is where you track all your expenses. So there are ways of doing it. You can keep your receipts and then tally them up at the end of the day or every couple of days. You can have a little notebook where you write down what you're spending money on, just those little amounts that you need to keep track of. Or maybe you just have something on your phone like your notes section where you keep a track there. But whichever way you use, you need to keep a track of what's going out. So for example, if we had some grocery spending, then we would have a drop-down menu here. This drop-down menu would be exactly what's in this complete list here, all your different categories. If you spend some money on groceries, you would click on groceries. You would then say we spent 123 on groceries, and you will see that 123 comes off the amount spent, and we now have a balance left of 1877 for groceries. Okay, and this also now picks up your bank account. This is your actual bank account. There's obviously nothing showing here at the moment, but all this must balance with your months over here. And then if you draw cash out of the bank, then your cash gets shown down here, cash on hand. There's a little wallet. You would put in how much money you have at the end of the day, beginning of the day, whenever you do your reconciliation. But that cash obviously hasn't been spent, so it needs to be part of your budget of what you have not yet spent. Okay, and then as you go through the months, you can carry on here. You can see phone up there is an item, and we might spend 50, so you just put in 50, and you have a place here if you want to put a little description of what it is. It's optional. Your savings there, you would do that at the beginning of each month, so that would be, there we go, monthly savings, and we said it's 400, so you would put 400 here. And so it goes. So it keeps taking there. You can see it's taken the 400, and we have nothing left in our account on savings because we've transferred it into our other account. At the bottom here, you will get a reconciliation. This little cell here, if you scroll down a little bit, it says here must be green, and we will show you in the longer tutorial how you make sure that that stays green all the time. If it doesn't, it means that you've gone over your budget, and that is not a good thing, and obviously then you need to correct it, and there are ways of correcting it. You might have to take some funds out of a different category, but you need to keep that green. And then this little diagram here just tells you how much of your total budget you've spent for the month. Okay, so that's a very quick overview of how it all works. It is simple, as I said, once you've set it up. Oh, the one thing I didn't mention was at the end of the month when you want to restart everything, it's very simple. You just click this button up here, and you'll see all these expenses that you've been tracking zero themselves. This zeros themselves, and everything goes back to the start of the next month. If you have some changes that you need to make because the next month your income might change or your expenses might change, then you would just go back to your setup part over here, your categories, and you can just make alterations to those amounts so that again you end up with this green square down here. So it is a simple thing to track. The other nice thing about it is that you know exactly what's in your bank account at all times. We also have a way of reconciliation to your bank account, or reconciling your bank account, so that you can make sure everything is going through and nothing strange goes through. And the same thing happens with your savings account. So if you're happy to do a little bit of work, if you're happy to start running off a budget, and I can assure you it will make, I've seen it work in people's lives. I've seen it make a huge difference. I've seen people pay off debts. I've seen people start to save money where they were really struggling in the past to save. So if we can help you, it would be really, really great. And if you'd like to download it and give it a bash, well, that's I'd really welcome you, and we will always be here to offer you, to support you and answer any questions you have. What we'll also do is, if there's an update, and there will be updates because we'll find better ways of doing things, you will automatically just get that update sent to you as long as your email address is still current. So thanks very much for watching, and we hope that you will give it a bash. Thanks very much, and all the best.